I would like to talk to you about a movie called Planet 51. Now, I'm showing you here on screen the cover image for Planet 51. You'd be forgiven for thinking this is one of those animated mockbusters, like the kind that you find in the Walmart DVD bargain section. The Tappy Toes Penguins, Chop Kick Panda, An Ant's Life. You know what I'm talking about. But no, this is a studio film produced on a very sizable budget. It earned $100 million worldwide in 2009. Gary Oldman is a voice in this movie. So why have you never heard of it? Well, first of all, as always, when I make these videos, when I say you've never heard of it, what I really mean is I've never heard of it. Because whenever I make these videos, 10 people immediately write to me and they're like, no, I love that movie. It was one of my favorite movies growing up. It's goated or whatever. Like I said, I have never heard of it, and I'm just projecting. I feel incomplete and impotent because of that. But here's the thing. It's the summer of rock on my podcast, Load Bearing Beams. You know that. You know it's the summer of rock. Everybody's celebrating the summer of rock. And we are going through the filmography of Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And one of the joys of going through somebody's filmography is stumbling upon some crazy high budget movie that you have never heard of. And if it's an animated movie, that's even better because I can add it to my ongoing series, Forgotten Animated Movies. Animated movies are expensive, they're laborious, they take years and years of work, require hundreds of really talented people giving it their all, and that's the case even when the movie turns out to be bad, which is the case with Planet 51, unfortunately. Yeah, Planet 51, 2009, stars The Rock as a hunky human astronaut, and he crash lands on an alien planet, but largely this movie is told from the point of view of the aliens. So the hook is like, guys, this time the human's the alien. That's nuts. But before I even get into this bizarre film, I had to figure out where did this movie come from? Why did I never hear of it? It had a $70 million budget, made more than $100 million worldwide. That's a disappointment. But still, it's rare for an animated movie to make that much money, and then for me to have not known about it as somebody who obsessively tracks every major movie and has since I was a teenager. So what is this thing? It is the product of a Spanish company that at the time was called Ilion Animation Studios, based in Madrid. Planet 51 was its first feature film, and there is a long history of animation studios setting up in Europe and in Asia to partner with Hollywood studios. It saves the Hollywood studios the animation costs. Illumination actually started this way. It started as a French animated studio called MacGuff, and it made cheap animation for Universal, and then became so successful that Universal purchased them outright. And Illumination is basically now Universal's in-house animation studio, along with DreamWorks. But that's why if you watch an Illumination movie, you'll see so many French names in the credits, including the creator of the Minions franchise, Pierre Coffin. But yeah, Ilion eventually got purchased by Skydance, and now it's known as Skydance Animation Madrid. But it really seems like they are actually Skydance's in-house animation studio. And I have been following the story of Skydance Animation for a long time. It's one of these fascinating Hollywood boondoggles. Ever since they hired John Lasseter in 2019, once he got ousted from Pixar, he would lead them into animation glory. And all they have done is make movies that no one's ever heard of. Before the Lasseter thing happened, before they were acquired by Skydance, my familiarity with Ilion was this movie called Wonder Park, which is a animated movie that was such a notorious disaster that it doesn't have a credited director because nobody wanted to put their name on it. And their most recent movie was called Spellbound, which went straight to Netflix in December of last year. This has a superstar A-list cast, music by the absolute legend Alan Menken, but because it went straight to Netflix, you've never heard of it. You've never spoken to a single human being who has ever heard of this movie. Spellbound, though, it was co-directed by Jorge Blanco, who is the director of Planet 51. So Planet 51, a movie written by Joe Stillman, a very successful Hollywood screenwriter, co-writer of the first two Shrek movies, co-writer of what I would consider a top 10 all-time American animated movie. I'm talking, of course, about Beavis and Butthead Do America. But you'd think with a writer of this caliber, or at least this experience, that he would provide sort of the basic Hollywood screenwriting seminar structure to your movie, your basic save the cat sort of no-frills animation kids movie plot. But no, Planet 51 doesn't even have that. It is an absolute drag, and I'll try to unpack it for you. So this movie opens with two teens who go to Makeout Mountain to have sex. The movie openly acknowledges that they're going to have sex. The girl's like, I'm not the kind of girl who would do this. And the guy's like, I'm not the kind of guy who would do that with a girl who would do that. But let's let's do it. And then an alien ship like appears and starts shooting at them. Then the military arrives and shoots at the alien ships. Then more alien ships arrive, shoot at the military. We see a bunch of dead troops on the ground, but then the camera pulls out to reveal the people you think have been humans, well, they're actually green blubbery aliens, and they're being attacked by other aliens. You pull out again and you realize you're watching a movie in a movie theater, but the people in the audience of this movie theater, they're also green blubbery aliens. The real people of this world, they're green blubbery aliens. So that's the conceit of the movie, is that this world, it's kind of like a perpetual 1950s or 1960s world, steeped in pop cultural signifiers that, like, from that era that boomer filmmakers are so obsessed with, especially with like the science fiction and B horror movies of the time. Like if you've seen Joe Dante's Matinee, that movie was a great tribute to this movement of films. There's also like a poster for a movie called Humaniacs with a villain that looks like a human, but it's not exactly a human. So there is, like, I think, a pretty cool idea that like this planet is aware of the existence of humans, but doesn't totally understand them. But that's an idea that the movie barely interrogates. It also does absolutely nothing with its premise of this being a perpetual 1950s world. Like, this isn't a Pleasantville style movie. Like, it's really just like, hey, wouldn't it be fun? We'd have all these cute design elements, all these fun signs that make it look like we're stuck in 1950s or 1960s America. That's the only reason they do it. And then there's like 70 needle drops of really, really bad cover versions of songs like Long Tall Sally. But so the movie's story involves a teenager named Lem. He's played by Justin Long, and he's like a dork who works at the planetarium. And in this movie, the planet that they're on, their understanding of the universe is very flawed. Like, he says the universe is only 500 miles long and has about 1,000 stars. So I guess, like, if I was being kind to the movie, it's like the idea is in this perpetual 1950s, our understanding of the universe is so small that that's all we can conceive exists. And that this is kind of like the prosperous white middle class of America at the time, just putting its head in the sand, ignoring the carnage that exists out there at home and abroad that funds the consumer-oriented lifestyle that they love to lead. I think that's what the movie is actually saying, or trying to say, or I'm just reading way too much into this. But anyway, an alien spaceship lands, but the alien is actually a human, and he's played by Dwayne Johnson, and the movie becomes sort of a reverse E.T., and I guarantee that's the pitch that they had, is like, this is like E.T., but this time the E.T.'s a person. What? This, I think, is The Rock's first real vocal performance in an animated movie. A few years after this, he would play Maui and Moana, and I think that is a legitimately excellent animated voiceover performance. Do we see a harbinger of that great performance? Do we see similar excellence in his performance as Chuck the astronaut here? No, he is bad in this movie. But I think, as always with this era of Dwayne Johnson movies, I usually blame the directors over him. Like, they are just not direct. Like, he's game to do anything, but like every line that he utters in this movie sounds like it's completely isolated from the line that came before and comes after. It's like, okay, Dwayne, say it again, but with more enthusiasm. Okay, more enthusiasm, more. I'm Chuck the astronaut. And that's just kind of the pitch that every line is at. Whereas everybody else in the movie is doing just kind of a half-hearted version of their live action persona, except for Seann William Scott. And he doesn't do anything exceptional in this movie, but he at least tries to create like a character utilizing the possibilities of voiceover acting. So good for him. I think he should probably do more animated work. This also marks the third movie that The Rock and Seann William Scott have been in together. The only real idea that the movie has for The Rock's character, for Chuck, is that he was hired to play the role of astronaut, but this is like a version of Earth where astronauts don't do anything. They just ride. The ship is on autopilot. So they're just supposed to look handsome. They're supposed to pose for photographs. Like, he has this line that's like, I got to get back home on Earth because I'm supposed to get slimed at the Kids' Choice Awards. Like, that's about as much development as you have to his characters. You know, he'd really like to be like one of those classic astronauts, but that's just not what the world is like anymore. So there's like so many 50s and 60s references, some small, some big, like this very extended Singing in the Rain sequence where instead of water, it's raining rocks, because that's what happens on this planet, is it rains rocks. I really wonder who this is for, because like no child in the world is going to understand any of these jokes or the musical references, or like the scene where all the kids have to duck under their desk for like nuclear bomb drills. So this is really just for mom and dad, but I don't know what there is to appeal to the kids. Also, there is a running gag about butt plugs in this movie, in this family movie. I'm not kidding. Seann William Scott his character keeps saying, you can stop yourself from getting probed by the alien if you put this cork up your rectum. And this joke comes back several times. Lem, the Justin Long character, he has to hide Dwayne Johnson from the army, but because they have like this Nazi scientist who wants to torture and experiment on the astronaut. But then Lem, like in hiding him, like E.T., he learns to love Chuck and learns from Chuck that the universe is bigger than 500 miles. It's like 1,200 miles actually. And also Chuck teaches him how to have some of that swag, some of that astronaut swag with which you can overcome your existence as a dumb planetarium nerd. And now the girl next door, she'll finally give you the time of day. None of this is terrible. I just feel the movie's kind of condescending toward its target audience, the kids. It's just like, you'll eat up this slop because you got fucking green aliens on screen, whatever. I would describe the look, the animation in the movie as serviceable. It doesn't look cheap. That is the main thing. That is, I know it's a low bar, but it doesn't look cheap. The backgrounds of the movie were actually very good. The character animation is just really, really boring. Just a total lack of vision, of imagination. I don't know. I feel like there was a design aesthetic and character design and animation at the time from the lesser studios. Maybe it started with Shrek, where all the characters look just blubbery. They look blobby. They look bulbous. And there's just nothing to do for no idea for the animated characters other than like start at Shrek and then make it like 20% less Shrek. And I'm thinking specifically of the 2015 movie Home, which is not a terrible movie, but it has really uninspired character designs. Again, I think it all goes back to Shrek. And I think they're like, hey, maybe a grandma at Walmart will buy this movie by mistake thinking it's Shrek. So obviously, yeah, a lot of talented animators worked on this movie. I've seen way, way worse looking animated movies than this, but there's just no imagination, no enthusiasm for the medium. But then the movie's closing credits have these still images that look like they are illustrations from a children's storybook, and they look so much better and so much better suited to the material. Like you'd almost think you were looking at pages from a book that this movie was based on, but this movie wasn't based on anything. And also the phrase Planet 51 is not in the movie at all. It's also just one of those bad, unspecific titles like Hoodwinked. I don't know what you would call this movie, but it's just a bad, forgettable title. As always, I want to hear from people who know this movie, who grew up with this movie. This is a newer movie than the forgotten animated movies I usually talk about. So if you're a much younger person than I, let me know. Did you watch this movie as a kid? What did you think about it? What did you remember about it? And did you get the butt plug jokes? So please let me know.